Good morning, friends, and welcome to another physically distanced service. It's a beautiful fall day. The sun is shining, the trees are turning orange and red here. It's just wonderful to be outside and to share this service together in this way. As you can see from the slideshow during our prelude, we're celebrating and thanking Dan Mitchell for his 10 years of service with First Friends. Dan has made the decision to retire, and we wish him all the best. Dan has been such a valuable staff member over the years. Dan can do a lot of things. Repairs, sign painting, unbelievable decorations for VBS, snow shoveling, being willing to come over to the meeting to meet a vendor, or just really do anything that we've asked of him. The list just can go on and on. One of the things that we have appreciated about Dan is his sense of humor and also his tenderness and love for nature, the environment, his grandkids, and this meeting. We are thankful to have had Dan here and look forward to his continued participation as a member of First Friends meeting. Dan's sense of humor was displayed in many ways, and he always made our staff meeting a bit lighter. An example of Dan's wit is in the weekly timesheet that he would turn in for payroll. The timesheet had a line to identify our titles, and Dan would put something different down each week. Some examples are, the man who knew too much, thank you for being late, because Dan did sometimes have a little problem with time, the bright Mississippi, it's a mad, mad world, cry it out, that's a plenty, no man is an island, the life-changing magic of tidying up, Napoleon Dynamite. Dan, your titles always brought a smile to my face. You will be missed here at the office. We love you, Dan. We're fortunate that Aaron Thornburg will be stepping into this role. Aaron and Dan will work together on a transition, and Aaron will be in the meeting regularly on most Wednesdays. Welcome, Aaron. We will have Zoom fellowship after meeting today. You should have received a link. That's just been a great way to stay connected and hear things that are going on in our lives. So I have appreciated doing that each Sunday, and really thank Bill Heitman for being our host. Small groups have started to meet. Some of them have been meeting all along. They've been meeting out here on the grounds. We are going to allow small groups that want to, that are under 10, come into the parlor or fellowship hall. So if you're interested in a small group, and again, in our friend to friend, we've listed out what are the small groups that we have. A group that's already been going, you are more than welcome to join us. We also have on-program worship on Monday at 11:15, Wednesday at 6:45, and Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. Please join me in our opening prayer, a prayer for resting in God's love. God of goodness, we come into your presence so aware of our human frailty and yet overwhelmed by your love for us. We thank you that there's no human experience that we might walk through where your love cannot reach us. If I climb the highest mountain, you are there. And yet if I find myself in the darkest valley of life, you are there. Teach us today to love you more. Help us to rest in that love that asks nothing more than the simple, trusting heart of a child. Amen.
Consecrated, Lord, to thee. Take my moments and my days, let them flow in ceaseless praise. Let them flow in ceaseless praise. Take my hands and let them move at the impulse of thy love. Take my will and make it thine. It shall be no longer mine. It shall be no longer mine. Take my love, my Lord, I pour at thy feet its treasure store. Take myself and I will be ever only all for thee, ever only all for thee.
Our scripture reading for today is Philippians 1:9-11, the Message Bible. This passage is one of several prayers of Paul in his letters or epistles to the churches. Sometimes these prayers speak to our current condition and need repeated. This one to the church in Philippi focuses on the importance of love, as Bob will be emphasizing this in his sermon. May it be our prayer this morning. So, this is my prayer, that your love will flourish and that you will not only love much, but well. Learn to love appropriately. You need to use your head and test your feelings so that your love is sincere and intelligent, not sentimental gush. Live a lover's life, that your love can be circumspect and exemplary, a life Jesus will be proud of, bountiful in the fruits from the soul, making Jesus Christ attractive to all, getting everyone involved in the glory and praise of God.
Good morning, friends. It's good to be with you in the comfort of your own homes this morning. I hope this finds you safe and well. During the first couple of weeks of the pandemic, I was voraciously reading books, creatively painting and drawing, and finding the slowing down of life really good for my soul. Sadly, though, like many of you, much of that is worn off, and more it has become harder to read and be creative during this time. As I described to Beth on Monday, as we attended a virtual pastors' conference covering rather weighty issues in our country, my mind seemed to be swimming with so much that it was hard to focus. Later in that same conversation, as we were exclaiming how sobering the conversation was and how much it lacked hope, Beth mentioned the missing piece of the conference was a perspective of love. It seems when things get heavy and complicated, often the first things to go is love. And if you haven't noticed, love is on the run currently with all that the world is throwing at us. If you remember last week in my sermon, I mentioned letting go, which I said begins when we start to cling or shift towards something else. In that case, I said, I believe it is God, or what I often simply call love. I've noticed that for many of us, including myself, instead of clinging to love, we often take the easy route and let go of love, and then wonder why things have become so difficult. I sense much of our world right now is focusing on anything and everything but love, and it's really taking a toll. Then I was reminded of a teaching that was speaking to my condition just a couple of weeks into the pandemic. Ironically, one of those books I had voraciously read had me asking quite a few queries and challenging my own faith in these interesting times. And I found myself in what we spiritually call a dark night of the soul. Even though it was not the best book I had ever read, it piqued my interest long enough for me to get to the final 2 pages where, like that conference on Monday, I was longing for some love. I might say those 2 pages were worth reading the entire book. In those final 2 pages of the book, Unbelievable, Bishop John Shelby Spong introduced me to a phrase or a mantra that has continued to speak to my condition for months. The mantra is love wastefully. Love wastefully. Just sit with that for a moment. Say those words out loud to yourself. Love wastefully. What do you hear? When I say love wastefully, what springs up inside of you? How does that phrase make you feel? What images does it leave in your mind? Maybe it leaves you with a sense of uneasiness or wonder. Or maybe you do not like the idea of the word wastefully being used to describe love. I'll be honest, it stopped me in my tracks. I was winding down to the end when it had me reading each word individually for those last 2 pages. It drew me in, and then I did not want the book to end. Just moments before, it could have ended and I moved on, but then those words leaped off the page. Love wastefully. It made me ask, why did he wait until the last 2 pages of the epilogue of the book to explain this? Well, when I was exploring the concept more deeply, I ran across Reverend Deshna Shine explaining Spong's concept in greater detail. And she says this, she said, Spong believes that God is the source of all life, the source of love, the ground of our being, and is present in every person and in all of creation. I don't know about you, but that sounds rather Quakerly for a progressive Anglican bishop. But for Spong, the only true way to worship God is by living fully, loving wastefully, and having the courage to be all that we can be in full authenticity. Let me repeat that. The only true way to worship God is by living fully, loving wastefully, and having the courage to be all that we can be in full authenticity. By loving wastefully, which Spong likens to plugging that old sink in the basement, turning on the tap full force and allowing the water to overflow into every crack and cranny, never stopping to ask, does that crack deserve this living water? We can be overflowing with love. Loving wastefully means you love, and then you love some more. Reverend Shine goes on to say, we have an infinite well of love within that we can always fill ourselves up with. To love is to feel love, and to love wastefully is to love without fear or expectation or need. When we're tapped into the divine within us, to the divine's way of loving wastefully, endlessly and infinitely, we are not losing anything. In fact, we feel more full. Yes, when we are loving wastefully, extravagantly, wildly, our lives are richer and fuller and more complete. I sense the reason so many of us are feeling empty and stuck and even fearful is because we are limiting the experience of that overflowing source of love in our lives. Let's be honest. We're spending way too much time obsessed with politics, watching 24/7 news, worrying about COVID, isolating ourselves from others and also from what brings us life. Folks, we can be safe as well as loving. Actually, we can have a loving response to all those mentioned obsessions. Spong says that love is the force that enhances life. It flows through the universe, finding expression in the care that nature in all its living forms gives to its young, but love reaches self-consciousness only in human beings. That means you and I are the source of love. You and I are the source of love. Just let that sink in for a moment. That means either we choose to share it or we contain it. And this is evident because as Quakers we know that there is that of God in each of us. There's a glimmer of love in the depths of every person that has the potential for the greater good if we choose to share it. This means you and I have the potential to be a force that enhances life. Just imagine that there's a faucet that's been turned on somewhere deep inside of us, and it's ready to overflow through our life and out into the world around us. And when it's not used, I sense it begins to weigh us down. We continue to fill like a large balloon, not able to react or move freely. Reverend Shawn pointed something out from Dr. Vivek Murphy in his book Together that I think is extremely relevant during the pandemic and unrest in our world. She says, the vast majority of us feel lonely. Often we feel lonely even if we're around people we love because we are not having deep connections at all of these three vital levels with the self, in relationships, and in community. We all seek deeper connections and we desire to receive more love, but we are afraid to give it. We're afraid of getting hurt. We are afraid of being empty, of losing love. We're afraid that in the act of giving love, we are actually losing love. When in fact, when we take time to look within, we find that there is this deep well of love bubbling up within us, an eternal spring of living waters. We can discover that the experience of loving fills us up with love just as much, if not more, as the experience of receiving love. To worship God is to be love in this world, and when you are overflowing with it, you are able to love wastefully. I have a feeling Dr. Murphy is encouraging us to let out the love. Just like that balloon overfilled with water, as soon as there's an opening, it's rather hard to contain the water that comes pouring out. The same is true for us. The love begins to spew right out of us and onto everyone around us. Or as Spong said so well, the love that comes out of us is the kind of love that never stops to calculate whether the object of its love is worthy to be its recipient. It is love that never stops to calculate deserving. It is love that loves not because love has been earned. And finally, he brings it full circle by saying, it is the act of loving wastefully that I make God visible. It's love that sees beyond political parties, folks. It's love that sees beyond religious affiliation. It is love that sees beyond social or financial status. It's love that sees beyond race, ethnicity, sexuality, or gender. It is love that sees beyond the veneer of our lives and gets to the love within each of us at our core. Our call to love wastefully must work to build and transform the world around us so that every person we come in contact with will have a better opportunity to live fully, love wastefully, and be all that each of them was created to be in the infinite variety of our humanity. This means, and Spong points out, that there can be no outcast. There can be no one regarded as unclean. There can be no prejudices which are allowed to operate in this vision of Christianity. The essence of Christianity is that everyone is to be accepted, just as I am, without one plea, and that everyone is called into the task of growing into all that each of us can be. But folks, I sense we and our world are desperately seeking a model or example to live by, one who teaches us to love wastefully. Where do we look for an example of one who taught and believed this? We look to Jesus Christ, a person who was so fully alive that we have perceived him as the ultimate source of life, and one who loves so totally, so wastefully, that we see him as the ultimate source of love. Or as Paul put it in Ephesians 5, 1-2, watch what God does, and then you do it, like children who learn proper behavior from their parents. Mostly what God does is love you. Keep company with him and learn a life of love. Observe how Christ loved us. His love was not cautious, but extravagant. He didn't love in order to get something from us, but to give everything of himself to us. Love like that. That, folks, is what we will call loving wastefully. Now, let us take a moment to enter a time of waiting worship. I've prepared a few queries for us to ponder this morning. 1. Where, instead of embracing love, have I let go of love during these difficult days? 2. Am I feeling lonely and not deeply connected to myself, my relationships, and my community? How might I seek deeper connections? And 3. When this week will I take time to explore and observe the love Christ has for me and transform it into love for my neighbors?
yourself to love. I will walk these mountains in the rain, learn to love the wind. I've been out before the sunrise to watch the day begin. I always knew I'd find you, though I never did know how. But like sunrise on a cloudy day, you stand before me now. You must give yourself to love. If love is what you're after, open up your hearts to the tears and the laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. Love is born in fire. It's planted like a seed. Love can't give you everything, but it gives you what you need. Love comes when you are ready. Love comes when you're afraid. It will be your greatest teacher, the best friend you have made. You must give yourself to love. Your love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and the laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love.
Our benediction today is Your Love, author unknown. Bless us with your love, O merciful God, that we may love as you love, that we may show patience, tolerance, kindness, care, and love to all. Give us knowledge, O giver of knowledge, that we may be one with the universe and Mother Earth. O compassionate one, grant compassion unto us, that we may help fellow souls in need. Bless us with your love, O God. Bless us with your love. Amen. Have a great week, friends.